Well, and welcome to the M&A Partners webinar on your journey to the cloud. Just a few introductions. My name is David Talbot, and I head up our business services department, having worked for M&A for something over 20 years. Joined today by Lily Pomfret and Gary Brown. Lily has been with M&A for about 6 years now and is a QuickBooks Advanced Online Pro Advisor and is our QuickBooks lead at M&A. Gary on the right there is a member of our business services team, and he is a Xero certified advisor, a qualified accountant who specializes in software and IT functions, and he leads our Xero team. Okay, this is part of a series of webinars that we've been running on cloud accounting and related topics. So what are we covering today? Well, the main thing is really looking at why we should change, and then looking on further from that at case studies of real businesses who've made the move. This is either because they've moved from traditional accounting systems, or this is their first taste of an accounting system. So hopefully you may find that you can identify with some of these clients, although we recognize that everyone is different and we're trying to help all of our clients to find the best solution for them. We'll also look quickly at the typical onboarding process, just in case you might feel that is a potential barrier to the transition to the cloud. And at the end, as I've said, there'll be an opportunity to raise questions. So firstly, why should you change? What's wrong with your current system? Well, a variety of different reasons. One of the main benefits of cloud systems is that there is access to accounts information. The classic phrase there is anywhere, anytime, and any device. You're no longer stuck to a Windows-based PC. We can use lots of different devices to access our accounting information whenever you need it. So people that are sitting there on the train with their mobile phone, they may not be playing games. They might actually be looking at their accounts or doing a bank reconciliation. Automating data input. Again, this is a key difference from traditional accounting systems. The time and effort that traditional systems need to put in data manually, keying in invoices, keying in bank entries, doing bank reconciliations, a lot of this can be automated with cloud systems. The data is held in a digital form. Another key input is the fact that systems are always up to date. Again, we weren't particularly aware of this until you start using more of the cloud systems and realize that the pain and agony of having to install updates on traditional desktop systems that many of us have suffered from, and trying to get things to be configured correctly once an update's been installed, or Windows has done its worst to mess up your printing settings. All of those problems seem to disappear with cloud systems, because all you need is an internet browser to get onto the internet. The ability to collaborate, firstly within your own team, within your business. It's much easier to have multi-user access. I mean, typically this is included as part of the cost of the system. And rather than the accounts computer being isolated, tucked up the corner, a bit of a dark cloud and a mystique over it, you find that you can open up the system to have more people actually involved with the accounting system and looking after perhaps their customers and other areas of interest. And because it's accessible from anywhere, it's easier to collaborate with your accountants at M&A, and we can look at your data. So you can ring up or email with queries. We can have a look, resolve queries, and put those in place for you. The cost. Well, a few years ago, people were perhaps a little bit put off at the idea of paying monthly subscriptions for a cloud-based system when they were used to paying a one-off upgrade fee for a perpetual license on their desktop systems. I think the market has changed now, and a lot of people with their desktop systems are getting quite expensive increases in subscriptions, in their renewal costs for desktop software. And actually it makes the cloud systems look exceptionally good value. So no longer is that seen as a barrier and in fact a positive benefit. Compliance with making tax digital. This was the subject of a webinar we did last year when there was a lot of anxiety about the introduction of making tax digital and the requirement to submit information directly online to HMRC. To some extent, it was kicked a little bit into the future last year, but we are reminded that in fact, for some businesses, the first submissions will be required in about 12 months' time. And so we mustn't lose sight of making tax digital. And in fact, it makes good sense to start planning. If your year end is coming up at that point next year, then maybe now's a good time to start thinking about the move to a cloud-based system, which will enable you to comply fully with those requirements. And again, another very hot topic at the moment, compliance with GDPR coming in May this year. Security, obviously the issue of having your data stored on a very secure cloud-based system, that may be quite attractive as compared with the risks and concerns of having data stored locally on your own PC, on a laptop, which may be vulnerable, or indeed having to put backup and security systems in place on your own server. So that can be another driver towards change. One area I want to look at in a little more detail, that of the automated data input. Bank feeds, one of the key features of pretty much all of the cloud accounting systems are that bank transactions can be imported directly from your online banking system. This is a process that can be automated, or you can choose to have that refreshed by logging in using your own security device and password. But either way, it means that that data is put into your accounting system without the need for keying all of the information in. Another key benefit is that of invoice scanning. This usually comes via a third-party app, and we'll look at one in a little bit more detail later on in one of the case studies. Scanning in of purchase invoices, and the invoice system will then learn based on the way that you code these invoices in the past, and indeed that other businesses have coded invoices from that supplier. So this then means leads to what I've termed their intelligent posting across into your account system. Those same systems are also used by some of our clients for staff expense claims. Using a mobile app, they can take photographs of their train tickets, car park receipts, fuel receipts, whatever it may be, on their mobile phone and submit those with the relevant detail. And that again can flow straight through into your account system. So saving a huge amount of data entry if that's something that your business has in any quantity. And the last of two things, really, the high degree of accuracy that these systems have. No longer are we going to get the transposition errors or relying on the accuracy of our bookkeeper and the data entry, because this is picking up the information directly from the source. And in turn, this leads to a vast reduction in manual data entry. It's possibly not eliminated entirely in all cases, but so much of the routine data entry is done away with. Okay, so that's enough of the background. I want to now look at case studies, and we've got four of our clients that we are looking at today. Very, very grateful for that. First one is Doodle Pots, then Indigo Swan, ATHE, and Ember Films. So I'm going to hand over to Lily, who's going to talk us through the first one of those.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be having a look through with you at a client of mine called Doodle Pots. So Doodle Pots is a family-run business. They are relatively new, so they've only been trading for the last 3 years. The driving force is the daughter, very creative in the front kind of the family and the business, and she's very nicely supported from mum and dad and also sister. So Doodle Pots is a ceramic cafe, and they are based in Holt on the North Norfolk coast. So they predominantly are looking at offering personal and memorable experiences, and ideally they kind of deal with young mums and babies, and are also moving into pets, I believe, as well. The offering that we kind of looked at for Doodle Pots was to do with their requirements. So because they are a new business, they really didn't have any preferences other than they wanted the accounting package to be easy, to be efficient, and to also be reliable. By their own admission, they also said that they had very little previous accounting and also computing experience, so wanted something that would fit in with their existing knowledge. And that they also were considering manual records over electronic ones on the basis that they had a fear that the technology could let them down. So after meeting with the client, we came up with a solution. And the solution that we provided was QuickBooks Online. Having now been on the program for 2 and a bit years, we've established that all the business bank accounts have been linked. So as David has already mentioned, the option of bank feeds. This has been a great tool for Doodle Pots, as it means that their incomings and outgoings are nicely recorded through the bank account, and very little data entry is actually required. On the odd occasion, invoices have also had to be created, and QuickBooks Online has allowed them to do this very easily. They've also customized their invoices and had the option to import their logo, so they look very professional. And again, it's all done within the program itself. As a new business, they are very keen on making sure that they keep an eye on their results, highlighting key expenditure and maximizing growth. So they found that QuickBooks has been really good at allowing them to track what they've classed as their key metrics, so potentially their key costs, and the ability to run real-time reports whenever they need to in order to get the information at the click of a button. Over the last 2 years, the business has now grown, and at the start, we were assisting with their payroll. However, they have now taken this in-house and are doing this through QuickBooks Online. Very recently, they've also started to use the VAT module. So we can see that as the business grows, QuickBooks has been able to also grow, and they have had to do very little changes other than just a little bit of learning along the way. And their most recent adventure in an area that we're going to be looking into a little bit more in the future is that they have recently upgraded their EPOS units within the shop, and we're going to be looking at how this can connect with QuickBooks Online going forward. And as you'll kind of see at the bottom of the screen, is just a nice little summary quote that we got from the directors, Dennis and Caroline, which is that for their business, they've classed it as the perfect accounting package. It was reliable as they expected, simple, fairly inexpensive, and adaptable to their business needs as well. So Doodle Pots is a nice example of a SME. And as they're in the retail industry, I just wanted to also demonstrate that it's not restricted to industries as some people may feel. So we've got some nice quotes from 2 other SME clients, South Norfolk Trading, which are a dealership of classic cars in Norfolk. And they were previously using a Sage program, and we were looking at how they could automate their processes. And we found that actually QuickBooks would be more viable for them. And as it nicely puts on the screen, in their opinion, it's far less complex than Sage. So the ability to adjust entries has been a really key area for them, and the simplicity again. Another client is Adrian James Acoustics Limited. They were actually doing manual records, so on spreadsheets, and we moved them over about 12 months ago. So they've been on it for a good year now. And for them, their biggest achievement and the comment they made was that actually it's saving them considerable amounts of times. And in their opinion, they wish they'd have made the move earlier. So there's just to highlight that QuickBooks and other cloud systems works on a range of industries and a range of clients, and that it's not just restrictive to very small startup businesses. So I'm now going to hand you over to Gary, who is going to talk through a case study for Xero.
Thank you, Lily. Yes, we're going to look at Indigo Swan, who are an energy consultancy firm based in Norwich. We got involved with them when they started to find frustrations with their current setup and felt like there must be a better way of doing the things with their system. So previously, they were using Sage 50, which is quite a common thing we find with a lot of our clients, with it being probably the most heavily used program in recent years. But they started to find that they felt Sage was very accountant driven. They felt it focused on the user being an accountant rather than a business owner, and wasn't so helpful in terms of sort of getting management information out of the system, which is really what they wanted from it. They also found that they were doing lots of manual data entry. That's one thing we keep mentioning on, but the amount of invoices that they're having to put into the system as their business grew over the years became a very slow process. And again, that sort of the risk of errors that can be done when it's being manually put through was often a frustration for them. Another thing was the bank reconciliation. Again, something that you're having to do manually, entering all that data in, very time-consuming and tedious process, which for something which ultimately is just a process that needs to be done for the purpose of the records, but you don't really get any great benefit from it other than keeping yourself up to date. Another thing they found was that it was becoming more and more costly to the business for their internal accounts processes. The amount of data entry they were needing to do, and then in order to get it done within a timely process, they were having to potentially employ more account staff, and they even got to the point of considering full outsourcing of their internal accounts process just to be able to get this process done without taking up so much time. Which would obviously potentially be a very costly proposition for them. So what did we put in place for them? Well, we looked at their specific requirements and the needs of their business, and we decided that for them, Xero would be the best package for them. The conversion process was done at their year-end date, which was December, and we took the Sage data that they had at that point, used that as the starting point for the Xero data, and they were able to use that as a nice clean point to say, right, everything's done in Sage, let's start afresh, new year within Xero, and go from there. They also took the option to use the payroll system within Xero, and they started that at a slightly staggered place. So they weren't doing all this change at one point, but from the new tax year in April, they started doing their own payroll through the system as well. Further to that, we also introduced a couple of add-ons for them, which they would find more useful, one of which being Receipt Bank for scanning in of purchase invoices, which is something David will show you in a bit more detail in the next case study. And we also set up Futurely for them so that they could do forecasting and cash flow planning. It's a reporting app, which is one of the additional add-ons which Xero gives you as an option. And that's part of the reason that the Xero seemed to be the right fit for them, was that they had the flexibility with these additional add-ons that they would find particularly useful. So what benefits did they start to see once we put this all in place? Well, initially, it's some internal efficiencies. Having all these systems in place, having everything connecting to each other, and having multiple people within the business be able to connect in and look at all this data really started to find that things that were taking longer to do suddenly start to take a lot less time, and everything goes a lot more swiftly. Easier access to the information. David mentioned earlier about the ability to access things from anywhere. But they really found great use from this, not just being able to have the one machine in the office that you've got Sage on, but being able to, either connect to it from your machine in the office or on your laptop at home or even on the train on your phone. Being able to find the information whenever you need it, wherever you are, was great benefit to them. Bank feeds as well. the bank reconciliation being a big frustration for them coming into this, and having the bank feeds, bringing all that data automatically in, and the ability to set up rules and things like this, where the bank reconciliation goes from being a really tedious, time-consuming process to one where it's a lot more straightforward and a lot quicker to go through. The forecasting dashboards from Futurely, again, they really wanted to be able to use the accounts program to provide them with better information to make better business decisions. It's, you need to have your accounting system to do all your compliance and what have you, but ultimately, beyond that, they want the system to be giving them information that they can use to make decisions and to help progress their business. And something like Futurely enabled them to take that to another level, where the information that they're getting out is really high level useful stuff, and not just a process driven by the requirements of compliance. And finally, the reduced internal accounts costs. So while they were initially considering outsourcing, which, as I say, could potentially have been quite an expensive proposition, they were able to switch the system that they were using, and suddenly they were able to do all these things in-house with the team that they already had, and were already finding things quicker and easier than before. And so that potential cost was easily offset and reduced by switching packaging in the first place. And now I'm going to pass you over to David, who's going to look at another one of our case studies.
Thanks, Gary. Yes, the one I'm going to look at is ATHE, another interesting business which perhaps shows the diversity of some of our clients. This is a business in the higher education field that are responsible for awarding qualifications at various levels. And we've worked closely with Daniela, who's shown there, who runs their finances. They, again, were previously a Sage 50 user, and they had two key issues. One was the sales invoice production, which, of course, was the classic situation of being restricted purely to the accounts PC that sat there at one end of the room, and no one else dared go anywhere near it. The second issue was really the fact that dealing with purchase invoices was pretty time consuming. Not only did they have to be entered onto the accounting system, they were filed away, access to them, you wanted to retrieve something, you had to go and thumb through all of the lever arch files to find the relevant invoice that you needed. So yeah, not only that being hard to access, but other accounts information in general, and running the business was not easy without that information to hand. A lot of reporting on this business was done on spreadsheets, so quite a time delay in getting that information out. A picture that I think is familiar to many businesses. So the solution that we looked at was a combination of Xero and Receipt Bank. Sage data this time, it was actually converted midway through the year, just to demonstrate that it's not necessary to put this all together at the financial year end. The data that was converted was a mixture of the current year and also the prior year's entries. So quite possible at any stage, even, dare I say it, midway through a VAT quarter. So there's no particular restrictions in that process. We were able to set up multiple users, which, as I've said before, is something which is pretty common with these cloud systems. Again, spreading access quite easily around the organization. We helped them with some training for their wider staff on sales invoice production, and then set up the links with Receipt Bank into Xero. So Receipt Bank, just a quick look. I can't show you their data. That would not be good for client confidentiality. But this is the input screen where they would go to upload PDF files of invoices. So invoices that have come in paper form can simply be put through a scanner and then dragged from the desktop into this area of the web page. Or if you've got invoices that have come through by email, again in a PDF form, then those can be dragged into this area. The other alternative, which both this client and I know that several other clients like to use, is using a mobile app. And this is just a generic screenshot of the Receipt Bank mobile app, with a number of invoices where it's very straightforward using that app just to capture the image of the receipt or invoice, and Receipt Bank will do its stuff and extract the data as to who the supplier is, the date, the amount, the VAT, and all of those exciting things, and then determine where best to post that information to and link it through to your accounting system. So it really is as straightforward as that. The feedback that we got from ATHE once the systems had settled down, a couple of quotes here. I mean, firstly, the making the switch to Xero, they said that was easy. It's enabled all of their team to have access to the system, seamless bookkeeping, and an issue that I think many of us will be familiar with, the sending of backups around, just become a thing of the past. And as far as Receipt Bank is concerned, again, all this uploading of supplier invoices is now so much easier. And the crucial thing is that a copy of that invoice is saved into Xero, so they no longer need to keep thumbing through paper files. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Lily, who's going to talk us through the last of our case studies. So over to you.
Thank you, David. So the final case study we're going to have a look through is a client called Ember Films. There is I think, misconception with QuickBooks Online that potentially it's only suitable for smaller businesses, but Ember Films is a really good example of maybe why those businesses with slightly more complex and detailed reporting can still be done on QuickBooks. So here we've got a nice photo just of the team. Ember is, as it says, an Emmy Award-winning content creator. They specialize in filming and producing content for both television broadcast, cinema, and also for online content. And their nice little tagline there is, from an interview to IMAX, they cover all the bases. So when Ember came to us and we're talking about their account system, as we've seen with a couple of these examples now, they were on Sage 50. However, this time they actually had the added function of the Sage Drive, which was kind of seen as the halfway house, should we say, between desktop and cloud for a little while. One of their big areas for concern for them was the volume of transactions that they needed to process and to track. And for them, it was finding a way that they could do this quickly and also efficiently, that they can maximize their time and their staff's time. They're also a service provider, and so for them, they really needed to assess whether their projects that they're running were profitable and whether they needed to kind of highlight areas that they should work on in the future and areas that may not be a best fit for their business. And in order to do this, they also needed to be able to see the time that employees are spending on certain projects. And although this might not be reimbursed, it's something for them internally just to track their own time cost against the income that they're receiving. So the solution that we presented the client with and that they decided to go with was QuickBooks Online. And we discussed the bank feed option, as we've seen already. For them in particular, Ember do actually have multiple bank accounts and credit cards all linked up. So the processing of the transactions have definitely become a lot quicker. The top package of QuickBooks also has the ability to do what we call the class and location feature. And we've tailored this and adapted the program to enable the client to track their projects, both kind of individually, but then to also assign a higher level of analysis and that they can track industry. So they can compare the actual project itself versus maybe the industry that it's in and see whether that's also a viable option for them. QuickBooks Online has a management account function built in already, and so we just assist with some quarterly reporting and then generate some management accounts very nicely produced from the system already. And an area that we're ongoing supporting Ember with is, as they've already mentioned, that employee time tracking. And we're just looking at how we adapt QuickBooks in order to get the information they require. But also looking at doing the budget function that is within the package as well. So as Gary mentioned on the Indigo Swan, you can take each package and stagger how much you want, so it's not a full hit on the first go. So the benefits that we've kind of had from Ember, and this is some nice quotes that they've provided us with just to highlight the 3 areas that they found were the key areas for them. Time and control. So time is always a precious one for businesses and for us personally. And Ember have found that as they're still growing, they've been able to save a huge amount of time, but still get out the overall picture and financial situation of the business that they require. The flexibility of the program has also been a really key point for them, in that it is that ability to access your data from anywhere on any device, and it's not having to be on that one computer to get up to the minute information. And I guess the wider thing here is that they've been able to make more informed decisions, and because they've been able to analyse these projects' information a lot better and work out which ones are viable and which ones are maybe ones they need to kind of focus a little bit more time on. They have been able to incorporate this into their future planning and also as part of their quarterly business monitoring to see an overall picture and how it's impacting the business. So that was the 4 case studies that we kind of wanted to show you to highlight the different cloud packages that are available and just some of our own client experiences to make it seem hopefully a little bit less daunting. And now that we've done that, I'd like to just share what we call as the onboarding process, which is really how you would go about making this move to the cloud if it was something you were interested in. So first of all, we are able to actually convert your existing data depending on how you store it. So if you are on a Sage desktop or a QuickBooks desktop, we are able to actually convert this data and put it into a cloud-based product so that you're not starting afresh. We aren't restricted to having to do this purely just at the year end, but we would say there are some really good points in the year for us to focus on. So maybe the end of a VAT quarter, but we're not kind of totally restricted on when it might be able to be done. And as part of this, we can just do a tidy up. So those accounts that don't get used anymore, we can maybe drop those out a little bit and just tidy up your data for you going forward. We can assist with actually setting up the program and creating the user IDs and the accounts so that the people that you need to have the right level of access can have that level of access. We can also talk and show you through how to do the bank feeds. As we've seen with most of these case studies, it's been a really good tool for the automation and the saving of time. And we can talk you through the process of connecting these and also assist you with that process. The custom sales invoices, some people feel happy to do this themselves, but there have been instances where we have assisted clients with this area, because if you have a bespoke invoicing layout already and you would like to keep that, there are certain ways that we could maybe put that into the product for you, or we might be able to just adapt the programs as they are to get the layout as close as possible so that your customers don't really see a great deal of difference when you change over to the system. As Gary very nicely mentioned, there are other apps that connect, such as the Receipt Bank and the Futurely, as we've already seen on 2 of these case studies. These are things that we can definitely help you with. And if there are other apps available that you would like discussions with, or to see if there's anything out there that might fit your business, then this is something that we can help. And finally, the big thing is training the users. This is something that myself, Gary and David are more than happy, and other members of our team, is to give you training. We can either do this on site, or we do have a host of other training resources available. So we've got some webinars and some YouTube videos that you can link into, just to make sure that everybody is up to speed, ready for when the program is up and running. But I guess the big question really is, do you feel that you're ready for the journey to the cloud? And I think the answer to that should always be yes. And here at M&A, we're always happy to assist with that process. And over the last 12 months, and maybe even a little bit longer, we've definitely been able to assist lots of organizations make the change to the cloud. And as we've seen already that some of these case studies have presented, there are definitely benefits available to doing that. As a firm, we try not to pinpoint one specific program and get all of our clients to fit that model. We would rather assess the business model that you have set up and actually advise you on a program that we think would fit you best. So as you've seen, we don't just stick to one program. We do have a lot of experience in lots of other solutions, not just QuickBooks and Xero. There are some other packages out there that we can assist you on as well. It's just making sure that you're on one that is the best for you. And as I've already said, there are lots of benefits, and many people are already starting to realise it is a slight culture change in moving from a desktop to a cloud. But once you kind of get your head around that, the benefits you can reap from it will be really, really exciting. And the hot topic that David's mentioned is the making tax digital. The big point is that 12 months away, we could start having to do making tax digital, and being on a program ahead of that is going to make you compliant is always good. And it also gives you a little bit of breathing room to get used to the program. So from April 19, it's going to be keeping an eye out of whether your current system is compatible, and you'd rather have to get a bit of time now than make the jump when you get told to. So I'm just going to finish up with David, who's going to summarize everything and then go through some questions.
Thanks, Lily. Not too much of a lengthy summary, just really to alert you to the fact that we do have other cloud videos and resources available to help you if you want to look at those. We've got a YouTube channel, which there's a link there, and we can let you have that link later as well, which has got a number of different videos on there that may be relevant in helping you to decide. We also run workshops from time to time, and Lily's asked me to promote her QuickBooks Online one, which is coming up in April, and I think some invites are going out for that very soon. If you're interested, then please let Lily know about that one. As Lily said, yeah, we work with some world-leading products. These are not little ones just relevant here in this area. The four that we've got there at the bottom, QuickBooks, Xero, Receipt Bank and Futurely, that we've mentioned throughout today's presentation, they are but four that we feel are probably of general application to quite a few of our clients. But we do work with other products as well, and happy to try and find the best solution for you. So let us know if we can help you anymore. Now, I think we've just about reached the end of our presentation, so just check and see whether there are any questions that popped up on the chat. I think, yeah, there's one there that says, are the solutions available on different platforms, Android, Apple, and Windows Mobile? The answer to that is pretty much yes. I think all of the applications that we've talked about today are multi-platform. Certainly sometimes an app that you need to add on to your account system may be restricted as to the operating system, but best to check with us first. But certainly one of the benefits of the main products like Xero and QuickBooks are that they are functioning across any of the platforms. A couple of other questions. One here, why would you choose QuickBooks or Xero? Would someone like to comment on that?
So we tend to feel that there are very big similarities between QuickBooks Online and Xero, and really it's just reiterating that it's choosing the best one for the client. So we'll just assess what needs you've got and just kind of recommend the best program from there. The biggest kind of difference between the two is that Xero is able to integrate and have a lot more add-on features than what QuickBooks maybe possibly has. However, the language and the simplicity of QuickBooks can also be a factor for them as well. So hopefully that helps just to distinguish why those two packages can be different for clients.
Okay, and another one here, just a question about VAT, about direct submissions. I know that recently, with the changes on the government gateway, quite a few Sage users have found there's been some hard selling to upgrade to the latest version. I don't know, Gary, would you like to just comment about direct submissions from these products?
Yes, thank you, David. Yeah, from both QuickBooks and Xero, you can do direct submissions, the preparing, submitting of the VAT returns, all straight through that. Yeah, unlike something like Sage, where with the individual versions, if there's a change at the government's end, it's going to have to get rolled out in either an update or just in the next version of the product. These online versions, well, they'll just update them as soon as any changes are needed. So you're never going to end up in that same potential situation where you're having to change the product just to keep in line with regulations.
Excellent, thank you. I can see that there might be a few more coming through, but I'd like to wrap it up at that point. Thank you very much indeed, and hope to hear from you soon.